Guys and gals, we got an awesome giveaway today. As you know, we're dropping the Klim episode. So to spice things up a little bit, we have teamed up with Klim to give away their brand new heated goggle lens. This is their eFire Edge goggle. Couldn't be more stoked to give this away to one of you listeners. How do you enter? Easy. Click the first link in the bio. There's gonna be a place where you can drop an email in. This is probably gonna take you less than 20 seconds. That's all you gotta do. We're gonna announce the winner before the next episode drops. So in the next 2 weeks, these will be on their way to one of you.
Okay, hey, welcome back. We are season 2 of the Sledder Cast podcast. We hopped on the old interstate about 15 minutes, dropped into the Klim HQ and in Rigby, Idaho. We're sitting here with Dustin Pancheri, and we have a wonderful conversation set up for us. We're kind of pre-season. We're getting ready for the show season to start up, and so I'm excited to get talking about snowmobiling. And
yes, especially since it's 100 degrees outside. It's brutal.
We're in that. When you're watching this, you'll remember the couple weeks here, man. It is brutal heat across. I mean, everywhere. So
I wish I was headed to Chile again.
Yeah. Wasn't that last year? Was that last year? Around the same time, or was it more in August?
We left on the 22nd, I think, or 24th. I can't remember exactly.
Yeah.
Last week of July.
Have you kept up with snow conditions down there?
Oh, dude,
right now?
I follow it close.
Is it?
And it's killing me.
Is it hopping right now?
It's booming down there. So it's early season for them. It'd be like our December, 9 foot of snowpack in some areas.
Wow.
Yeah.
So I was actually thinking about that the other day. Why is it that we don't see on social media content from down there? Am I just not following the right people, or because when it's winter here, we see it's all over, but is there just not?
Well, they don't really have a snowmobile
people?
industry down there.
So there's just not enough people down there that's creating the content.
There are very few sleds. Yeah.
Yeah.
And I only follow a couple sites down there that ski Corelco, because that's the ski resort right next to Cesar's outfit, and then Andy's Snow. And Andy's had some pretty good content.
Yeah.
And then Cesar, Sled Chili, they've got some pretty good content.
Yeah.
But they were riding early.
Yeah.
Really early.
So when does their season typically wind down? Is it really?
I don't know for sure, because I
mid-fall?
haven't been down there, but I'm going to guess end of September, October-ish is my best guess.
Yeah.
I know they stop guiding, I think, right in that end of September range. Yeah. Yep. And then most of those guides come from, the Utah, Colorado area.
Oh, so they're dropping
they all
down
go
there.
down there, yeah. Yep. Yeah, so
life.
Skylar Holgate, he's kind of like the lead guy and partnered in that business down there, and he lives in Durango.
Okay.
So he's the head, I don't know exactly what his title is, but he's like the avalanche mitigation expert for all of Silverton.
Okay.
All their stuff. So he's the guy that flies around the chopper, and they're like, hey, drop a charge here, or drop a charge here.
Yep.
And then he guides in Alaska in the spring, and then he goes to Chile in the summer. So he's got a, kind of a 9-10 month snow gig.
Yeah.
Total dream job, dude.
I got to follow that guy.
Yeah, he's a stud.
Yeah.
The dude knows probably more about avalanche stuff and snow stuff. He's been all over the world.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Seen all different types of terrain.
Yeah.
That's cool.
Yep.
So I want to ask you a question. So if someone just stumbles across this video online or the audio version, what can you say to that person now, knowing that we're going to talk about the growth of Klim over the last decade, and we're gonna go through a pretty extensive list of things not to do if you want to get sponsored in the snowmobiling industry. So knowing that that's kind of the general conversation that we're going to have here, what is something that you can say to that person who just was swiping and came across this that's going to get them to stop what they're doing and dive into this episode?
I think one of the biggest questions I get asked all the time is what does it take to make a career in the industry, power sports industry in general? We're going to pretty much cover that.
Yeah.
We'll go through most of that. So if you've ever been interested in what it's like to work in the industry or kind of get a career or sponsorship, that type of stuff, we'll talk through that, I think. Most of these questions will cover a lot of that.
Yeah. Awesome. Cool. So Dustin, just over a decade, like 11 years, almost we pop it into 11 years. 2013, you made a career transition from SLP to Klim. So when you started at Klim, what was the role that they hired you for, and then like how does that transition to what you're doing today?
Yeah,
10 years later, 10 plus years later.
Well, there's kind of a crazy little bit of a story about there. I actually had 2 offers to come here, and I didn't take the first one. Most people don't know that. It was in development, product development.
Okay.
Which I enjoy.
And back then, so let's go 2013. What categories were we in? The same categories that we are today? Dirts, street, casual. Obviously snow.
Just not as wide.
Okay.
We were just kind of getting started into the motorcycle side. We had off-road. We had a couple motorcycle pieces, but not like what we have now.
Yeah.
Hadn't done really much with avalanche safety at that point in time either. So we've just taken those categories and really expanded them.
Yep. Okay.
So, but then they hired me when I did start here. It was as a regional sales manager. So I had a territory that I managed reps. I think there was 4 or 5 of us. Mm-hmm. And I was in charge of the Rocky Mountain West.
Okay.
So basically the whole mountain snow belt, Utah.
To the coast.
Yeah. Yeah. Yep.
Okay.
Which was awesome because that's what I was passionate about.
Yeah.
Yep.
Cool. So that's what you got hired on. That's what you got hired on to do. Mm-hmm. How did your career transition over the last 10 years to what you're currently doing now? What different roles have you had?
What's interesting is I'd always wanted to get into the marketing side. Like that was really my final goal. The sales management job was, I don't want to call it a stepping stone, but it was a foot in the door. And I had the contacts from being in the industry for 15, 20 years or whatever. And I was a regional sales manager for like 5 or 6 years. That changed. Territories rearranged, and I ended up in the South and developing that area. We didn't have a ton of presence in the South, so we were trying to build up some dealer bases and our product to work better in the South and things like that. So I spent 4 or 5 years doing that. And then I really liked the technical side of the business. We were looking for somebody to kind of develop a training program for our dealer network, and so I decided to move into that position. And we did that for a year, and then I moved into the athlete management position.
Nice.
Yep, and that's been fun.
On the dealer side, I don't know if this is like knowledge you can share, but when you reference your dealer network, like how vast is that network? I mean, are you guys?
It's constantly growing. It's I would say it's a pretty good sized network. I mean, we've got thousands of dealers.
Yeah.
So just in the U.S., I can't say exactly how many you have right now, but I think it's over 1,000.
Okay, just in the U.S.
Mm-hmm.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
So now you're over the athlete program, right? And so like on a day-to-day basis, what's Dustin doing within that program? Probably depends on the time of year, but
it does. Yeah, it does depend on the time of year because we have to plan a long ways out for budgeting purposes. I mean, we start planning for shows 9 months before we go to the show.
Yeah.
We do athlete contracts ideally long before that contract starts. But we'll start doing budgeting in September for the following season. So I might be setting a budget for something that I'm not going to use for a year or over a year.
Yeah.
And that planning is a big part of what we do because we work with so many influencers and athletes, so many events, so many shows. Like there's a lot of numbers when it comes down to, I mean, the spreadsheets are not fun, right? But it's a lot of planning, a lot of conversations, a lot of strategies. Our marketing plans are all planned out. We have a thing that we call the go-to-market plan, and we literally have sections in there that are shows, product focuses, athletes, special projects, events, content creation, and then it's all planned out by the month, and then each person has tasks, and we go through and, who do we need help for this project? And so it's not just hey, let's feature this this month. We actually plan it out based on when we're going to release a product, how many we're going to get, what athletes do we feel like work best for that product, what shows make the most sense to promote it.
Yep.
What ads do we need? What Facebook posts do we need? That's all planned out on calendars. And
yeah. And I think most people don't realize that, like a company your size, backed by another company that's even bigger, Polaris, like you can't just fly by. You can't just be shooting from the hip. Like
there's too many moving parts.
There's too many, decisions that have to be had to make sure that you guys are doing the right thing. And so, I think that's something that just most people don't realize, especially athletes who are trying to get into the space, and get some sponsorship from companies that, like, you can't just, on a whim decide yes or no if we're going to roll with that athlete. So
yeah, I would say one of the biggest questions or maybe misconceptions we have is, so we have a full-time social media manager, Mo. She does a great job. But we always want content from people. Like, we always wanted to send us content so we can post it and share it and things like that. But that's all on a calendar.
Yeah.
So people send it, and then they're like wanting us to share it right now.
Yeah, post it.
Well, Mo has programs that she like loads everything into, and it kind of posts it. I don't know exactly how it works, but she's very organized and has a very
schedule some things out.
Yeah, she's got a great plan, and it's not easy for her to change that.
Yeah.
Or she would basically be sitting there doing it 24/7, which that's not realistic, right? And so like she comes in, she works an 8 to 5, just like the rest of. Well, she works way more than that, but basically she has her work hours, and she's very organized about putting all that together. Well, it's very hard to just change all that on the fly and then throw a post in there,
sneak something in,
right?
Yep.
And social media is all about quick response, right? Like what's happening now. And we appreciate it when people send us that content, but it might be, a couple of days or whatever before she gets it posted, because she has to kind of stick to her schedule.
Yeah.
So a lot of people don't understand that. They just think it's somebody to be like, oh, here's a cool post here, I'm going to post this right now.
Yeah.
It kind of is, but there's more moving parts than that.
Yep. And one thing that we've noticed that helps out, and we've actually done this with Klim as well, is if you can communicate with that company, hey, I've got this cooking, I'm probably going to give them a preview.
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to publish this probably this day, or this day. What day would work best for Klim or for whatever company?
Yep.
That way you just give them a little bit of a heads up, because you have no idea what's on their content schedule. Like if
you are dead on.
If you post that and then invite them as a collaborator, but they just barely did this big launch or something, now they're debating, well, now that kind of interferes with the program we had set up for the next couple of days. So I think just communicating and planning and giving that company just a little bit of a heads up. Hey, if you were to come in on this post with me, when would be the best time for you guys?
And Mo's awesome at that. Like if you start that conversation early and be like, hey, how's the best way to go about this? And she'll kind of tell you what makes it easier for her.
Yeah.
She is way more willing to work with you on that and spread your message, in your post. There's something she can't do. Like, I mean, we do have certain kind of brand rules and things we will and won't do just because it doesn't make sense for the brand. But if it's somebody that is an influencer that's that's in our camp that we have a partnership where, I mean, we want them to grow as well. And so
exactly,
there's things that we'll do to work together. It may not always be perfect or what somebody exactly envisions, but at the end of the day, we want to uplift the industry. We want to uplift, everything, everybody. Like that's our job, is to help them, they help us.
Yep.
And so if we can help them grow, they can help us grow. It's a win-win.
Yep. Yeah, I like to reference it as, and some of these guys here have kind of heard me use this analogy, but I like to use a relational bank account. So you build up relational equity with a person or a company, meaning like if I just always come to, let's say, Dustin and Klim, and hey, can you do this? Can you do this? Can you post this for me? I'm always withdrawing from that relational bank account. But if I'm constantly depositing and adding value to a company or just to the space or the industry, now when I go for that ask or that withdrawal, I've got a pretty big bank account already set up there to where that industry is more acceptable or that company is more acceptable of, Trevor is
their willingness.
has like they've added a ton of value here. Yeah, we'll do this for them, right? So,
and that's one of our top 10 things that kind of
we're speeding ahead. Yeah,
that. That's all good though. It's all good.
So we'll get into that. But over the last 10 or so years, what have been some of like the key successes or things that you've seen from your perspective that kind of stick out as like, yeah, that was a pretty significant thing we did. That was a pretty cool thing we did.
I think avalanche safety gear for us, especially backpacks, has been a real key. I've been heavily involved in the avalanche stuff for the last 5 or 6 years. We really wanted a bag that was kind of developed by snowmobilers for snowmobilers, and we were, I would say, the first to do that.
Yeah.
And now there's kind of been other people that have kind of understood that, hey, the snowmobile market is a big market. It makes sense to develop a bag that works more specific for the snowmobile market, and that's been I think a pretty that market's grown a lot in the last 5 or 6 years.
Yeah.
Avalanche safety awareness has gone up, and with the snowmobiles that we have nowadays and the capability of the riders, it's something we all have to be aware of. Like, we have to educate ourselves.
Yeah.
And the snowmobile community is starting to understand that. And so avalanche safety and the strides we've made in that and the products that we've developed for that have been a big part of our business and something that it's a pretty rewarding feeling to know that a lot of the stuff you see on the snow is a Klim Avi bag.
Yeah.
So I'd say that's one of them.
So here's kind of a fun question. I'm like trying to remember back in 2013, 2014, what it was like. But let's say you were in a group, maybe 10 riders, right? Back then, what would you say the percentage of those riders having the essentials, right? The bag, the probe, the beacon, shovel. Like, what do you think the percent?
10 years ago?
10 years ago compared to now. Like with like the crew that you kind of, maybe you were just.
I don't know if my crew is maybe the best example, because we were pushing that at the time, and so most of my crew, I was adamant that we needed to have something.
But if you take
in general, I don't think it was really high.
Yeah. So that change has been.
I bet it was less than 15%.
Yeah,
that's a guess. I have no data to back that up with, but now I bet it's got to be over 50 or 60%. I would think.
Oh yeah, for sure.
All the hardcore guys, for sure.
Yeah. Yeah, it's good because it's almost to a point now where it's like, if you show up and you don't have that, you're like looked upon a certain way. Like, what the heck are you doing, man?
Yeah.
Well, you know.
And honestly, that's the way it should be.
It should be, yeah.
Because I need that person to have my back.
Yep.
Right. So if they're not prepared, then I'm at risk.
Yeah.
Right. And so there's a selfish way to look at it, and then there's also a way like I care about that person being safe as well. There's those two perspectives, but yeah, we need to put pressure on
that's
our
good
organizations.
Pressure to put. Yeah, for sure.
Yep.
Cool. What about some of the challenges? What have been some things that you've seen over the last decade that you're like, oh man, we barely survived that one,
dude? Snow.
the volatility of Mother Nature, right?
Yeah, snow, and I would say land use.
Yeah.
There's always challenges in business no matter what, right? Like, there's always going to be hurdles. Just working with relationships and dealers and coworkers and employees, like that's never going to go away. But the one thing that's just out of our hands completely is weather and snow.
Yeah.
And that when you obviously snow it's like half our business, right?
Okay.
So we have the motorcycle side that's less dependent on weather.
Yep.
But the snow makes it at times pretty volatile.
Yeah.
And this year is a perfect example because the Midwest had no snow last winter. No.
Yeah. Like
there's
trails not even open.
Yeah. 400 or 500 dealers that are sitting on 70, 80% of their inventory.
Yeah.
And from an economic impact to the industry, that is huge.
Yeah.
Like, bad.
Yep.
Like, it's basically the worst possible scenario.
Mm-hmm.
You get high interest rates, you get economic downturn, and then you have no snow.
Mm-hmm.
That's
perfect
a really
storm for super crappy conditions and situation.
Yeah.
And so when this goes live, it'll be October. So fingers crossed, maybe we get some September snow.
Oh, I hope so.
Right?
I hope so. Yeah, everybody needs it.
Yeah, perfect. As far as like innovation goes here at Klim, you guys are are pretty. I guess I would describe it as kind of leading the innovation as far as mountain technical riding goes, as far as high end gear and equipment. Would have been some of the cool innovation things that maybe us on the outside don't get to see, but you being on the other side of the curtain, you get to see and can share with us.
Sure. I think early on it was the adrenaline boot.
Yeah.
That's just from looking at the numbers. That's the most popular boot in the industry, the best selling boot in the industry, and it has been for years.
Yeah.
And lots of people have recognized that and tried to make something that's similar, or it's been copied. And it's just the adrenaline boot has become the staple for the snowmobile boot in the industry.
Hey guys and gals, if you love the show and want to support us, head on over to deviantinc.com. Use the code SledderCast, save some money on your next premium custom wrap. If you've spent any time on deviantinc.com, you already know it is the best, easiest custom wrap builder tool out there. With its new interactive design tools, makes designing and customizing wraps super slick. We're big fans of the new color mixer tool. It randomizes colors until you land on the perfect combo. A design mixer tool is a game changer when you already know what colors you want and you want to see all of our designs in just your pre-selected colors. So head on over to deviantinc.com, use the code SledderCast, save some money on your next wrap purchase. Let's get back to the show.
Yeah, what was kind of what was available at the time, and then
Sorels. Like basically snowboard boots. Snowboard boots, I think, was actually what the aggressive people were wearing.
Yeah.
But the Gore-Tex, Gore-Tex was kind of the technology, the driver, the sole that we developed for snowmobile running boards. Nobody had really done that before. And so there was a specific boot built to keep you dry, keep you warm, withstand within reason, the running board abuse.
Yeah.
So that was one of them.
And with that boot, when did you guys introduce the BOA technology? Because that wasn't something that, that was,
it'd been around
with
not
like
in the
snowboarding,
industry.
but not in the snowmobiling industry. Was that something that came, I'm just trying to think when my first boot was. It was probably 16, 17, I don't know, maybe
we've
back
had
then.
it for, I would say, 7 or 8 years.
Yeah.
We've actually been playing with it for a long time. We'd played with it clear back, almost 15 years ago.
Yeah, wow.
But the durability wasn't quite what we wanted, and so it took some time to get it a little more applicable for our application.
Yep.
And we could see the demand. There was definitely an opportunity for it there from a convenience standpoint. And so once we kind of found that we could make it more durable, or they had a product that was the BOA brand specifically that would work for us, then we came out with it.
Cool.
So
the adrenaline boot, one of the most significant things that you've seen come through the product line over the last decade. What are some cool things that maybe you have cooking? You guys got cooking here?
Yeah, there's something that it should be out by the time this is broadcast.
We'll have to make sure.
We have a new heated goggle.
Oh, cool.
And heated goggles aren't necessarily new, but the way we're going about it is a little different.
Yeah.
And it's been in the works for 6 years.
Okay.
So we've been playing with some ideas. We really wanted to take the concept of the heated goggle and then refine it.
Yep.
Better battery life, more consistent heat across the lens. That was the biggest efficiency that we were seeing, was there was just really inconsistent heat across the lens. The ability to control the heat. So the functions that we have built into the goggles, there's 3 different functions, and you can make the heat come on all the time. There's a moisture sensor in it, so you can make it automatic.
Oh, wow.
And then we have a remote, so you can control it from your pocket or your battery if you want to. And then we have it so you can take the battery off the side of the goggle and put it in your pocket, and there's a cable that'll go down to the battery.
Oh.
So you can get the weight off your helmet if you want.
And because that battery is known to swipe a few branches and then just break right off, right? Because it just sticks out
Yeah, and I don't
out there.
I mean, the durability, that was one of the aspects that we really focused on, and our durability, I believe, is quite a bit better than what's out there. And so I think that'll be less of a concern. But the weight, you know, like we had a bunch of Iron Dog guys testing this for a couple of years, and they'll run 1,000 miles a weekend, you know, and they notice the weight. So getting that off the helmet, so that's an option. You'll be able to plug it into a 12-volt source if you want, like a boost pack, a battery pack, plug it into your sled if you want. So it's really versatile goggle. And then it's got the widest field of vision of any heated goggle.
Oh, nice.
We got a ton of lens options. So we took what everybody kind of had introduced. We're not saying we're the first, you know, we're by no means the first to have a heated goggle, but we took it and refined it into a package with more options, better durability, more field of vision, you know, better heat saturation. Just make a better product, right?
So with that heated lens and the ability to remove or reposition where the battery is, does that, I still have the ability, if I don't want to run heat, that battery is off, the weight is off my head, the battery is concealed, so I don't have to worry about, you know, banging.
It's a regular goggle.
Regular goggle.
Yep.
That's cool.
Yep. And then the way we're attaching the lens, the lens is a quick release. And it's also, we'll have some with HD.
Oh.
So they're high-end lenses. Yeah. So it's a pretty cool, like I said, we've been playing with it for 5 years, had tons of versions. Early ones like were clunky, battery life wasn't great. I mean, we've had to refine the firmware, the software, all the hardware. We've had to beef some things up, wires that didn't last, and you know, the Iron Dog guys in the super cold conditions could get them to fail. And so we found those failure points. So we've really put them through their paces. It's been fun to watch the project from what we started with to what we have now.
Yeah.
And even like, so what's July right now?
Yep.
They're actually being built at the factory right now. And the first ones that came off the line, even those, they're headed to Chile to do final durability testing just to make sure that what's coming off the line is still
dialed.
Yeah. So big project.
Yeah.
A lot of effort.
I always wonder, like, because when you come out and create something new, naturally you like want to tell the world like immediately. How does Klim conceal that when you guys are like 5-6 years out with development?
It's hard.
Like how do you guys keep that stuff to yourself?
It's challenging. And we're testing it too, right? So like I have my group of guys and I might be wearing a prototype something and I'm like, hey, sorry to be the Debbie Downer, no pictures today.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, guys want to remember the ride. You know, we take pictures and posts and things like that. So I'm either like taking my jacket off or my backpack or whatever it is I'm wearing, you know, hiding it behind a sled so we can take pictures, or I'm having to step out of the photo, or I'm the one taking the photo. So there's challenges that go along with that. But the stoke level is always high.
Yeah.
And you want to talk about it.
Yeah.
And yeah, it's challenging.
And it's fun to be a part of that, like that. The growth, I think, it brings to a company excitement for the future. If you're always, you know, tinkering and coming up with new stuff for the industry that you're serving. So
well, the cool thing about, I'm not saying we're the only company that's this way, but I think it's maybe in the minority. Most of us ride, and we want better products for us.
Yeah.
So most of what we develop, it's stuff that we feel like it's going to make our experience better, and the general public gets the advantage of that too, right?
Yeah.
I mean, it's a business, so you have to drive and pursue new ideas and improving that product. But I'm selfish. I want it for me.
Yeah.
And so we're always trying stuff that's just stuff that we're thinking about that we want. And then what the consumers and the general public don't see is the failures.
Yeah.
They don't see the ideas that didn't end up being a very good idea, or the stuff that failed and we had to refine it. And so I think a lot of times sometimes they may not appreciate what the end product is, and they'll be a little bit critical. It's like, well, you didn't see the 4 years of, you know, that it took to get to this point.
Yeah.
Not that everything that we have is perfect, but I mean, there's a lot of personal investment into those products because at the end of the day, I'm using it and I want it to be good and I don't want it to fail. I want, you know, and so That's the part that the consumers and the general public don't see.
Yeah. And when you're sort of leading the charge on that innovation, I think from a consumer side, you got to be able to recognize that and say, hey, like these guys are actually out here like trying to create cool new stuff. It may not be perfect. The goal is to get to perfect, but maybe perfect is the second or third year after it's been launched. It's still a phenomenal piece of product, but being able to always tweak and improve upon what is launched is key for business. And I think some people just, especially if, I get it if you're paying 23, 24, K for a new sled, everyone wants that to be, pretty flawless.
Well, and there's so much technology nowadays, it's gotten to the point where it's really hard to develop.
Yeah.
Because it's so complicated.
Yeah.
But for us, I think what we do is we say, okay, there's this fit for use concept. Like, what's the end use going to be? Is it going to work specifically for that? Are other people going to buy it for other things? Yeah, but does it mean that's what we designed it for? No. Are there some trade-offs or some compromises that happen there? Absolutely. And people forget that sometimes. They're like, well, that's not exactly what it was designed for. They think we just designed it and put it out there and it's going to work for everything, and that's not always the case.
Yeah.
And so that perspective kind of needs to be understood. But then also there's this fact of like, if we tried to develop everything perfect, we'd never come out with
anything.
You'd never get anything out.
Yeah.
So you have to draw this line. It's like, yeah, we know there might be some opportunity to refine it a little bit, but this is a good product.
Yeah.
And it does what we want it to do. We very rarely have to say, well, I'm not even sure if we ever really have had to say, well, it's good enough. I don't think we've ever really said that.
Yeah.
It's more like this meets the standard that we've set.
Yep.
And in 3 years, we're going to work on a revision or whatever, and then and we continue to refine and make it a little better, a little better, a little better. But for the most part, we won't come out with something until it hits this certain standard.
Yep.
And we've killed projects. Like, there's been plenty of projects that never came out because we just couldn't get it there.
Yeah.
It just, for whatever reason, the technology wasn't there, the base fabrics weren't there, the materials just weren't quite ready, and then we have to go figure out how to develop those materials.
Yeah.
That takes a lot of time.
Yeah. Yeah, I like this, the term 80% and done and finished is better than 100% and never completed, right?
In some cases, yeah.
Yeah, and 80% could just mean we know the what this thing's going to look like eventually. We're pretty dang perfect on this 80%, so we're going to send it.
Yeah, it's not about settling, it's about hitting that performance aspect, the standard.
Yep.
Getting to that point.
Awesome. So as far as like numbers go and general growth of Klim, I mean, it's been, a decade, like we said, plus for you. Countries that Klim's in, growth of the company, total, the amount of SKUs you guys offer. Like what can you address?
Just like the timeline.
Timeline, yeah. Like,
well, the cool thing is, started here in Rigby.
Yep.
I mean, Justin, country kid, farm kid, just like a lot of us that are here, started with zero. I mean, nothing. Like, he tells a story about how he was going to college and didn't have any money, and they were going out in the ditch bank and cutting asparagus for dinner.
Wow.
Like when they were first married, trying to start the company. I mean, literally started with nothing.
Sheesh.
The coolest story. And he took it to a $100 million company. And we won't get into specifics, but he took it to a $100 million company. That's a pretty cool accomplishment.
That's
wild. Idaho. Yeah.
And most of that, would you say, came by? I mean, I guess nowadays Klim's business is roughly 50 split, kind of evenly.
It's pretty even right now. Yeah. I think I could see motorcycle surpassing snow just because it's a bigger market.
Bigger market, yeah. Time frame to. Most states you can do it year round. So.
Exactly. Yep. And if you look at through the whole world, I mean, the snowmobile industry is pretty small.
Yeah.
You go to Europe, I mean, there's motorcycles everywhere.
Yep.
You go to Asia, there's motorcycles everywhere. Now, is that our clientele? Well, most of them are probably not a premium buyer, but I mean, the growth, the opportunity for growth in motorcycle is huge.
Yeah.
And we've just started to scratch the surface.
Nice.
So.
Cool. I think we've done a pretty good job of going through the list of like Klim in a nutshell in the last decade since you've been involved with the company. Why don't we jump over to
the no-nos?
The no-nos.
Yeah.
So
it's
you
so
hear
funny because nobody's ever asked me this way before.
Yeah.
It's always like, hey, what do I need to do if I want to get sponsored? Nobody's ever said, hey, what do you not do?
Yep.
It's kind of a fun spin.
And that's kind of how we wanted to take it is so the experience that I'll be speaking from is from obviously Deviant Inc. and from the sponsorship program and ambassador program that we have there. And you're obviously with Klim and have the experience from dealing with your extensive sponsorship pro ambassadorship program at Klim. So I think we'll have a pretty good base of like some of the stuff we've seen, and we're kind of just like scratching our head at like, really?
And I did, when I worked at SLP, I did sponsorship too.
Okay, so you've got even from
a little bit of perspective from that.
Yep.
Yeah.
So Dustin and I don't know what each other's top 10 list is. I said, hey, Dustin, you create your list. I'm going to create my list. We might have a few of the same things, but let's not muddy any of what we might say, and we'll just start from scratch here. And so
some of these are a few people are going to be like, really?
Yeah.
Really? You think that's a big deal?
Yeah. I think so, but really first impressions matter. I think a lot of this stuff
Absolutely.
A lot of this stuff is going to be pretty helpful. So why don't you start? And mine are in an order.
They are or they're not?
They're not.
Neither are mine.
Okay,
no.
So we'll start with the first one, and we'll go down the list. And
there's not an order of importance.
Perfect.
Okay.
10 things. Let's go. What's your first one, Dustin?
Inappropriate language in posts or public areas, including music, is a no-no.
Yes. So I have that too. I've got super vulgar or risque posts, and that can be in just your like your language or the music that you choose.
The
right?
music too.
Yeah.
Yep. And because I like and here and I'm the perfect example. So I got a 12-year-old, right? And he, obviously knows what I do.
Yep.
And I'll have people that have tagged me and stuff, and there's a song and they're dropping F-bombs and stuff like that, and I'm like, dude, untag me from that right now.
Yeah.
Like it's just not. It's not okay. This is a family-friendly sport.
Yep, family-friendly, and what people need to realize is like your circle of friends. That might be normal for your group of friends. Fine, like. That's totally great. But if for a company to come out and have that come from a company, that may not be the perception that the company, like the standards that they have.
Yeah,
right?
and we're never going to share it.
Yeah.
We're not going to share it. We just don't do it.
Yeah. That's a great one. I think that's, just want to make sure I put a note on that we already talked about that. But yeah, I think that's a great one.
I'm gonna put a checklist of how many of ours are the same.
Yeah.
So there's one right there.
Yep. Man, that'd be crazy if they're all the same. Okay, so I'll go. Direct message or email the company and ask them to repost your content. So the explanation here is we will get people who will tag us, right? And then if we don't share their content, like to stories or whatever, then it's like they're in our DMs asking, hey, can you share my stuff, right? The reason why that's a no-no for me is because I think there needs to be, sometimes we may not just see it, but if it's good content, most of the time we see it. So you got to take a step back and say, well, why isn't Klim or why isn't Deviant Inc. sharing my stuff? Maybe it's because there's language in there. Maybe if I take a step back and say, well, how's my quality versus what I when I go to the apps, what I see, if I compare that, maybe my quality is like way down. And it doesn't mean we're looking for like perfect, like super polished stuff, but a lot of times it's like all right, like we see you riding the snowmobile through the trees, and maybe our product isn't shown in the video. But when I get a person who's like constantly almost begging, I don't think it's a good look. So
there's some desperation there.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
Anyways, that
makes sense. And I'll add to that, because Mo can't share everything. She just can't do it. Like, that's just not possible, right? So she's going to focus on the top quality stuff, right? And also the people that have taken the time to develop their channels.
Yep.
And it's mutually beneficial. Now, that doesn't mean we wouldn't share something because we have a good relationship with somebody and it makes sense and there's a plan there.
Yep.
But to your point, most of what we're sharing from our partners, there's already a plan in place.
Yeah.
It's not a reactionary thing.
Yeah.
Occasionally it is, but it's just not possible to share everybody's stuff.
Yep. Cool. Okay, what's your second one?
Second one is trash talking competing brands. That's a no-no for me. I do not like negativity. I don't want to hear anybody trash talking another brand.
I don't have that one on my list, but that needs to be on my list. I love it.
Yeah, we're all in this industry together.
Yeah.
Like I want everybody to succeed. I don't want to see anybody do bad.
Yeah.
Right? I mean, does that mean I agree with everything that everybody does? No. Do we have competition? Absolutely. But I want the whole industry to grow.
Yeah.
So I respect my competitors.
Yeah.
And there should never be any trash talking. It's not good.
And I think there's also a perception you could pull from that is if they're willing to trash talk a competitor, what they might who's to say they're not going to trash talk us, right? Like like it. Okay. All right. My number 2 here is, so you get the bug, you want to be, become an ambassador or a sponsored rider, and you send like a mass email or message out to a bunch of companies that are competitors, right? So for us, it would be like, I'm gonna send a mass email out to all of the wrap companies and see what happens, right?
Mm-hmm.
So what happens? Yeah. So what happens is the first person who bites on that email or who gets back to you, you take that deal or whatever, right? Whatever that opportunity is.
Mm-hmm.
Well, it may be 3-4 days, maybe a week when you get back to them. And by the time you get back to them, if they've already got like a some sort of deal in place, like they're locked, loaded, signed up, whatever. The no for me for that is like you're just fishing for the best deal, and we like to find people that we can be friends with. Like we want to have a relationship with this individual, and we want to be buddies. Like, and so it's easy to tell, and a lot of times like we won't even like respond back to an individual if I can already tell, like, oh, they're already like they got an affiliate link already in their bio for a competitor.
It's almost like a bid process.
Yeah, and that I think from any, whether it's your competitor or our competitor, if you see that, is kind of like,
Yep. And I didn't write that one down exactly like that. When I was going through these, I had a thought that was almost exactly like that. Our goal, and you almost said it perfectly. I want to build long-term relationships.
Yeah.
Those are more important to me than finding a short-term deal where somebody's.
You can get some posts out of it.
Exactly. Right. Like we believe in long-term relationships for a couple of reasons. I think it's easier to help each other grow over time.
Yep.
Because you get to know them. You understand what their personality is like, what their strengths and weaknesses are, how you can complement one another.
Mm-hmm.
When you get to know somebody, you try. It's human nature to work harder for them.
Yeah.
Right.
100%. Yeah.
And so with all of our athletes, like the ones that I feel like we get to know pretty good, and you can't possibly be buddies with everybody.
Yeah.
But I can still have a friendly relationship and care about that person. And get to understand who their kids are and their family and their history and all this stuff. It makes a difference for most people, I think. But in a business relationship, sometimes they just see numbers.
Yeah.
And that's not generally a long-term solution. It just historically for us it hasn't been.
Yep.
So 100% agree. We're not interested in competing just to be the highest bid.
Yeah.
We're interested in a bigger picture than that.
Yep.
for sure.
Cool. Okay, I think we're on 3. Your third one, right?
Sure. Arguing or complaining. I don't want to see online arguments. I don't want to see social arguments. I don't want to hear it at races, at events. Again, I don't like negativity. Mm-hmm. We don't like negativity. We want to be around people that are uplifting.
Yeah.
And they're uplifting the people that are around them. So negativity online, and I've got another one that's kind of a side. It's similar to that, but yeah, there's no reason for it. It's not a professional way to act. So
love it. So my third one, this is a little. I hesitated putting this in here because it's a little bit of vanity in there, but I think just some self-awareness around. If you want to go and present yourself in front of a company and you want that company to buy into you, and you've got less than a few hundred followers, knowing that you can still represent a brand and not be like the super social media person, right? Mm-hmm. You better dang well have something offline that where you've got presence and you've got, some sort of value that you're doing offline, right? But if you don't have that, and you come to a brand and you've got a couple hundred followers, that's super hard because a business is going to invest in you because, it's marketing. And so if you're only going to be able to get in front of a couple people versus a bunch of people, there's more like your marketing dollars might probably go to the person who has a bigger reach.
Yeah.
Right?
What's your audience? Because that's really what I want to know.
Yeah.
Is if you're going to, we know social media is a big part of marketing now, right? It's not the only part, but it is the quickest way to see what their visibility is. It's one of the quickest references to see visibility. But there's other ways to be visible. There's clubs, there's organizations, there's racing, there's dealerships, there's all these other things, shows, but you have to be able to communicate that value, right? It's a resume, essentially. So the don't here is don't come ask for sponsorship without having that resume prepared and being able to show your visibility and your influence.
Yep.
Right?
Love it. Exactly. I've got another one that will kind of tie into that, so I'll leave it.
I do too.
Maybe where it's the same one, but all right, let's go to 4.
Don't mix in controversial topics and politics with sponsorship.
I've got that one on my list.
Don't want to hear it.
Yeah.
Because that leads to the other one, arguing and complaining.
Yep, and you can have those conversations as much as you want.
Yeah, keep it over the kitchen table.
Right, but in another earlier in my career in another company that I was with, as soon as you post something that goes left or right, you immediately turn off 50% of potential connections or potential opportunities, right?
Yep.
And so that is silly, right? But it's the truth, and it's like, just don't post it, man. Like before you hit that publish button, just move your finger away and don't do it. Throw your phone.
Yeah.
You'll wake up the next day, it'll be way better for you.
I get it. You can be passionate about things.
Yeah,
that's
for
awesome. Sure. We like to be passionate about stuff, but you need to understand the effect it has on everybody around you and the image that you have, because you're creating this brand image.
Yeah.
And you'll notice that most of the high level, very influential industry people, they don't ever touch that stuff.
Yeah.
There's a reason.
Yeah.
That doesn't mean they don't have an opinion. They just don't touch it.
Yep. Smart. And the other thing too is we've had multiple times where we've had some random person who has direct DM'd us and say, "Do you really support this individual?"
Oh, yeah. Yep. That's happened to us too.
I hate being influenced by someone who I don't know, and when I have somewhat of a connection with the athlete. So we'll go check it out, and we're like, "Oh man, wish you didn't post that," But it's like by posting that, you're putting the company in a position where they have to make some tough decisions, and they're just trying to run their company. Don't put the company in that position where, all right, well, do we keep rolling with this individual because they're kind of like a firecracker over here,
But here's how you know you have a good relationship with an influencer is when you can call them and say, hey, dude, I saw this post. Did you think about it from this perspective? Like, here's a concern. And then the person's like, you know what, dude, I didn't even think about it. He's like, I'm really glad you called me and told me, Zach. He's like, we should change that. I should change that.
Yeah.
Like, they care about how that's perceived by everybody, and they're totally open to that. And you can have that conversation. It's an open conversation. It's dialogue. It's just helping each other out. They are happy that you cared because you care about how it's perceived, right? And they're like, yeah, dude, we need to take that down. I mean, we've had to pull posts down before.
Yeah.
You know, so it's like it's a community effort.
Yep.
But if you don't have the relationship where you can have that conversation about that post,
it's a tough conversation.
That's a bad sign.
Yeah. Yep. For sure. Cool. All right. Was it my turn?
Sure.
Yeah. Okay. So, quantity. So this one ties in. So, if you're going to be an influencer, ambassador, sponsorship level, and you reach out to a company, and I go look at your profile, and I can click on this one, and it says, let's say September, and I can click on this post, and it says July or June, and I see there's one post in there that just has snow in it or a snowmobile.
Yeah.
It's like
the seasonal poster.
Yeah. It's like, come on, you know, like you've got to show up.
It takes work.
You got to put in work. You got to be consistent. So maybe you're listening to this right now and you're like, that's me.
Well, I think it's a lot of
right.
I mean, I've been there too. Not that I'm trying to be an influencer.
Yep.
But I don't care when I post, and I'll go a long time before I do a post, and then, you know, somebody will be like, "Oh my heck, your son is so big now," and I'm like, "Yeah, I kind of haven't really done that for a while."
Right.
But when it's part of your job,
yep. When you're seeking out those opportunities,
it becomes an issue.
It's important to companies to see that. They want to see consistent work on your end, right? So
yeah, for sure.
Okay.
Let's see. I'm gonna kind of do two here. So one of them is trash talk other influencers, other racers.
Oh.
It kind of ties into the whole to what we talked a little bit before. But what I don't like and I don't respect is people who, again, they're not respectful to their other racers or influencers, and they talk negative about them or they trash talk them.
Yep.
Don't like the controversy. It's not a good look.
Yeah.
There's even people out there like, this is a big one, you know, the controversy about Hayden Deegan.
Yeah.
If you follow motocross, you know, like he's pretty much in your face. Like the Deegan family likes to stir the pot.
Yeah.
Right. Okay. That does bring some attention.
But what kind of attention, right?
Yeah. Like from a relationship standpoint, I don't want to have to wonder if one of my people's going to start something with somebody.
Yeah.
I want attention, but I want good attention. You know, so we don't need the trash talk.
Yeah.
Bring attention, but do it in a positive manner, right? So that's one thing that we look at is, hey, how does this person getting attention? How are they bringing attention to themselves and their sponsorship? Is it in a controversial way where they're being disrespectful and not, you know, like, I just don't think that's the way to go.
Yeah, and relatively speaking, the snowmobiling industry is relatively small. You can burn bridges super quick, super fast if you're not careful.
And I'm not trying to pick on the Deegan family. Those guys are obviously like super successful. They've built a great business. I mean, they're very smart with that stuff. Do I agree with the way he goes about some of the stuff he says? I think he's got some maturing to do.
Yeah,
for sure.
Okay. So this is kind of a fun one. I put no follow up. So you don't follow up. So you're reaching out to companies.
I have that on here too.
And you reach out to them one time, and then you don't follow up. And there's a quote I love by an old guy named Jim Rohn, and he says, "The fortune is in the follow up." And I would go out and say a super high percentage, 80, 90% of all success in business happens because people are following up.
Yep.
Right?
Absolutely.
So just because you reach out to Dustin and maybe he doesn't, get back to you in a timely, in a matter of time that you think he should, like you got a lot of stuff on your plate. So just follow up. Dustin's going to appreciate that.
I literally
right?
have one in my inbox right now.
Yeah.
And my inbox is a mess.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's one of my deficiencies for sure. I've got one in that somebody followed up because I didn't reply to their first email.
Yeah.
Very professional about the way they did it too.
Yep.
Like he went automatically to the top of who I want to reply back to first because of the way he handled it.
Love it.
Great one.
I'm a huge fan of follow up. So, okay.
Presentation. Don't how do I want to say this? Sloppy. Don't be sloppy. Like we always try to show up with a clean truck, a clean trailer, you know. I mean, we look professional. We present everything we do has a nice, clean, professional look. Presentation matters.
Yeah.
That first impression that you talked about earlier, presentation is usually how that's formed, right? With somebody that I've kind of become pretty good friends with, Scott Judnick, that owns Judnick Racing. We had this conversation yesterday on the phone, and he's like, I owned a garbage business for 25 years. He's like, our garbage trucks were never dirty.
Yeah.
I didn't allow our drivers to have empty pop cans. And it's like, dude, you're driving a garbage truck. Put it in the back.
Yeah.
He's like, I know it's a garbage business, but presentation still, it's a matter of professionalism and how people will respect the way you carry yourself and do your work and all of those things. So presentation matters. Don't have poor presentation.
Love it. Yeah. Fully agree on that. Okay. We're skip a couple of mine because you've already called those ones out. Here's one. Expect free product from the very beginning. So this is the idea here is, you know, give before you take.
Entitlement.
Right.
I
Entitlement.
have that one on here. Yep.
So, you know, understand, like, step aside, get some self-awareness here. Okay, where do I sit in the scheme of things, you know? Am I coming out of company from like a Muskoka Freerider space or like a Brant angle? If I'm not pulling that, I can't expect much originally out of the gate from that individual or from that company, right? So we really love to see athletes grow within our platform. And so the ones who I had one last week who literally joined our program last year, didn't really, you know, purchase much of our product, wants to come back again this year and then ask for like a full comp free wrap.
Mm-hmm.
Just a lot of like weird things about that. And it's just a big no-no for me. Like,
yeah. And they didn't do a good job of showing you what they did to grow your business.
Yeah.
They might have done it, but clearly you don't know about it.
Exactly. That's a perfect way to say it. Yeah.
So it's like, well, why are you asking for something when you haven't really given anything?
Yep.
Yeah. I see that a lot too.
Yeah.
They're not good at documenting their successes and their contributions. And so when it comes time to, you know, kind of re-engage that relationship in those conversations, it's like, pretty one-sided because you're
trying
like,
to remember this person.
Don't know what you did.
Yeah.
Or it's more like what you said, where it's like they didn't do anything. Mm-hmm. But in their mind, they've put all this effort in, and it doesn't really match the expectation.
Yeah.
Yeah, we see that quite a bit too.
Yep.
I had entitlement down here as one of mine. We're kind of skipping around now because we're covering.
I only
each
have
other's.
a couple more that haven't been taken. So
here's one. I'm gonna bump down to this one. Having your social media set to private.
I've got that too.
Doesn't work.
I didn't think you were gonna have that.
It doesn't work.
I have that.
You know what? I actually wasn't. So one of my coworkers, because I asked, I was like, "Hey, what should I put on this top 10?"
Yep.
And somebody said it, and I didn't have it on there. So you're right, I didn't. Justin Wood brought it up, so that's a good one.
Yeah, that's a tough one because if you don't know if we don't know each other and I'm reaching out to you, right, and I'm private, well, the first thing you're going to go check is like, okay, what kind of presentation does this individual have? Click on it, private account. I can't see anything here.
And it's useless.
Yeah, and like,
yep.
So anytime you post, you're not getting any algorithmic reach.
Nope.
You know, benefit. And so, yeah, that's a tough one. So if you want to and you can stay private I have no beef with private, but if you want to be an ambassador or some sort of sponsorship, on some sort of sponsorship level, you just can't have a private account.
Or you have to be prepared to show your value in other
Outside.
ways. Yep.
Exactly.
Which in this modern marketing era is getting tougher.
Yeah.
For sure.
Well, I only had 2 left, and that was one of them. So the last one I have is, and we've kind of hinted at this a little bit, but tell the company everything you've got planned to do or you're going to do this season, right? Instead of showing the company what you've done.
Mm-hmm.
So I see that all the time. Hey, I got plans to start a YouTube channel. I'm going to go hard on YouTube. I just bought a camera. I'm going to go hard with video. And it's like, that's cool, but
heard it before.
Historically,
Yep.
Historically, it's probably not going to happen the way you're portraying it to me. It's almost better like just take a season, go build this stuff out, and then come back.
Yeah.
Right? Like
this goes to a conversation we were having the other day. Because there's this trend of how do I turn this into a job?
Yeah.
How do I make this my profession? I want to take my hobby and turn it into a profession, right? And when they do that, all of a sudden the first thing they do is they start trying to figure out how to get somebody else to fund it.
Yep.
And yeah, I'll make some people mad by saying this, but it's like, well, it's not my job to fund it.
Yeah.
Like we have a relationship of sponsorship that's a win-win.
Mm-hmm.
But it's not my job to pay your bills.
Yeah.
Like you have to figure out how to build your brand and your program in such a way that our relationship justifies a check or more product or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
But there's I can't tell you how many times we've had people come and be like, well, I've decided I'm going to do this for a living. I'm quitting my job, but I'm going to need some help to do it. Well, I need help to pay my bills. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah.
I mean, I'm kind of making fun of it a little bit, which is disrespectful, but that's happened a lot.
Yeah. If you find yourself in that frame of mind, you got to pause.
Yeah, it's like, hold
Stop.
up. I know it's a big risk and you're taking a leap of faith and you're trying to make your dreams come true. And those are all the things that you have to do.
Yeah.
But you've got to figure out if you have the value to justify somebody, helping put the money in your pocket.
Yeah.
And honestly, in this industry, it's small enough. Most people don't.
Yeah. Yeah, and the perception of, well, you're Klim, like you're so big, you guys can afford this, right?
Mm-hmm.
Well, it's like if you saw the list of things that we try and achieve each year and what it costs to go do these things, you'd understand, right?
Yeah.
So
yeah, the industry has limitations, and that's actually one of the ones that I have written down here is don't underestimate the importance of timing. I think a lot of people don't realize that timing is a huge factor in relationship building. And I'll kind of give you an example. The checkbook's only so big, right?
Yep.
Like just because people view us as a big company, and in some respects we are, and in some respects we're not.
Mm-hmm.
I still have a budget, and that budget was decided 9 months, 10 months, whatever ago. And I have long-term relationships within that I'm working with that budget has to take care of. So people will be like, well, say somebody wants to switch brands and they want to start wearing Klim or whatever. There has to be an opening. It's literally a job.
Yeah.
And if that job opening isn't ready, you're not going to get that job,
mm-hmm.
right? And sponsorship is exactly the same way. Just because the match, and we want that person, we want to sponsor that person, but the timing might not be right. I may not have the funds to do it. I have to wait for somebody else to drop off because the checkbook doesn't usually grow every year. I mean, we have grown and it does a little bit.
Yeah.
But that timing is a huge factor in those decisions, and it's always frustrating to have to be like, you know what, I so want to do this deal with you right now, but I can't do it this year.
Yeah.
Let's keep this door open and let's talk next year. And I've had a couple of those deals go 2 or 3 years before an athlete retires or we grow enough to get my budget bigger or,
mm-hmm.
you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Boy, I can't tell you how many people don't understand that. From the outside looking in, they really have a hard time wrapping their head around that. Even some higher profile athletes, they take it personal because they're like, oh, well, you don't value me that much then. No, you don't understand. I can't just go write a check to buy a new house right now. You know why? Because the money's not in the account. Same thing with sponsoring you. Like, I really want to, but I'm sorry, man. Like, I have pre-existing relationships that I value, and I can't displace that just because I also want to have a relationship with you. Like, timing is very important.
Yep.
So that was one I had.
That's
Don't
a big one.
underestimate
I didn't
timing.
have that one on mine, so I'm glad we were able to get that one in here. So all of mine we've gone through all of mine. Do you have anything else on there that we didn't touch on?
I have a couple that we kind of hit on. Don't mix and match competing products. That's usually not very well respected. For us, we're a head-to-toe company. So if we're going to have a long-term relationship, they need to be in Klim head to toe.
Yeah.
It doesn't do me any good to promote somebody else's stuff.
Yeah.
But that doesn't help us,
Yeah.
right? Unrelatable content is one. Posting about your dog every 5 minutes doesn't really help us that much.
Yeah.
You know, not that I love dogs and I think it's cute and it's fun, but one post about snowmobiles and 20 posts about dogs
Yep.
isn't getting the job done.
Yeah.
Right. So
Yep.
unrelatable content has to be considered. Not giving back to the sport. Like we look at that.
Just taking.
Are you involved in clubs?
Yeah.
Are you volunteering for things? Are you helping build this industry?
Yeah.
That's not part of your contract?
Mm-hmm.
You know, well, if it's not in my contract. Like, never want to hear that. Like,
That's a big
we
red
have a
flag right there.
responsibility to give back to the industry. So that we look at that one too. I think that kind of pretty much we've touched on. You covered a couple of the other ones. Yeah, that's a good mix.
Awesome.
I think we had either 5 or 6 that were pretty much almost exactly.
Yeah,
the
about
same.
half of mine were on
That's
yours.
good.
So
That's good.
that is good. Okay. So we are we're coming up on time here, and we always end our episodes with the same 2 questions we ask everyone. So we kind of call this our lightning round. But the first question is: you have a brand new sled sitting over there, just pulled it out of the crate. What are the 3 aftermarket modifications that you are going to do to it? Wraps don't count, and you start from scratch. So what are the first 3 and the only 3 things you're going to do?
The first thing I do to every sled is storage. I got to have a tunnel bag. I got to have a handlebar bag. I don't want it on my back.
Mm-hmm.
I think this is kind of like pretty well known in the industry now. A lot of the high profile people are like, hey, I don't want it on my back.
Yeah.
So I have a toolkit. I have an extensive first aid kit, spare gloves, generally a mid layer, something that I can put in a bag and shrink down.
Mm-hmm.
So I've got a little angle finder in my handlebar bag for measuring slope. I keep my cell phone in my handle bag. I don't keep it on me. Generally, I'll have a spare pair of goggles. Like if there's a compartment on the sleds, most of them have a spare pair of goggles or something like that. So bags is the first thing I do.
Yep. Okay.
Suspension.
Okay.
Is usually my second go-to. I'm a bigger guy. I have a feel that I like. Not that I can't do very well with the stock suspensions because a lot of them are really good now.
Yeah.
But I will generally put the suspension that I like on them, right? That's kind of tuned for me in my style of riding.
Okay.
Number 2. And then number 3 is going to be a stage kit of some kind.
Yep.
If it's a boost, it's going to be clutching, exhaust, tune.
Mm-hmm.
You know, if it's naturally aspirated, it might be pipes, heads, clutching, intake.
Mm-hmm.
Take some weight off, add some power, but it's gonna be a stage kit.
Yep.
Generally.
Nice. I like it. So we just published our top 5 most recommended mods from season 1 of Sledder Cast, and your last 2 were on that top 5 list. But the storage, I don't even know if the storage was on.
That's disappointing.
That's I don't.
That means people. I mean, maybe they're just not put as a priority, but that means they're not prepared.
Yeah.
That's a little scary.
So we'll see. Maybe the storage will make its ranks up this season.
Because I can ride a stock sled with stock horsepower and stock suspension, but if I can't carry my safety gear on it, I'm not going in the backcountry.
Yeah. Yep.
So that's why I put that as number 1.
Nice. Okay. All right. What's one thing that most of us here who are going to be watching or listening to the Sledder Cast podcast don't know about Dustin? What's that secret you got for us?
I have a total geeky one, and then I have an industry-related one.
Why not both?
Dude, I love gardening. I love gardening. I like.
Like
he's dying over it.
Like flower.
He's like, you are the biggest dork in the
flower
world.
gardening or like
I have
food.
Food. And I have landscaping. Like I want to pull in. I'm OCD. I want to pull in my yard, and the grass is cut, and the flowers are up, and there's no weeds. I walk in the backyard. My raspberries are there. My corn, my potatoes. I think it's really fun in the fall to like have peas and potatoes and corn and just like everything out of my garden. I think it looks like it looks nice.
Yeah.
And
there is some manliness though too, being self-sufficient, right? And
it's
that's
rewarding.
And that's right on the same vein of being self-sufficient. Yeah.
And my wife's into it, and then so I don't know.
It's the same thing as farming, right? It's the same thing. You're just doing it on a smaller scale.
Yeah. Yeah. But it's funny though, because like when I was 22, I'd have been like, why? I don't need a garden.
Yeah.
And now I'm like 46 and it's kind of relaxing and
yeah.
I like gardening.
Okay.
Yeah.
No shame in that. Love it.
Glad I gave you a good laugh, Colby.
Did you want what was the other one?
It's a little bit of bragging. I have 2 Jackson World Championship titles.
Okay.
In the amateur class.
In the amateur class.
I don't want to discount
what years?
the fast guys. 21 and 22, 23.
So
yeah, 22, 23.
2022.
No, 21 and 22, sorry. Because Norris Brown beat me in 23. Brett beat me in 24. Yeah. So I got 21 and 22.
21 and 22. Awesome.
Yep. So that's a fun little thing to have a plaque on your wall. Says world champion.
Gardener and a hill a hill climb racer, right?
Yeah. Multifaceted.
Yep. Cool. Yep. Okay. Well, we'll let Dustin get back to work here. We appreciate. I love recording podcasts in July. Yeah. That means we're sticking to a calendar.
Wearing flannels in July.
We're wearing flannels.
I'm not sure this was the best.
Yeah, it's a little toasty in here, but yeah. So we're excited for the upcoming season. Like I said, this is going to publish in October. So when you're listening to this, we're in October already. That means we had some shows already under our skin. We're pumped for Heydays. We're excited for that show, and hopefully a lot of cool stuff happens, and the people show up, right?
Yeah,
people show up to the shows because that's where you build that stoke.
Yeah.
So
and it always snows again. We know there's snow coming.
Yeah. Yep. That's one thing for sure. So
gotta be ready.
Okay. All
awesome.
Right.
Thanks
guys.
Thanks for coming.
Yep.